You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry Sanderson on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Game up on Idle Seattle for the top spot in the AL West. Guardians edge the Cubs 9-8. Cleveland leads the AL Central. Twins over the Royals 8-3 in a battle of two AL wildcard teams.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
What's today? Tuesday edition of Inside the Locker Room. 205-342-9904 is the number if you'd like to jump in on the show with us this morning. If you want to settle the debate between Missouri and Missouri, which I think we cleared that up by the pronunciation I sent you guys last night. Yellowwood pressure-treated pine from Great Southern. Always remember, guys, if it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want it. You want to build the 5-star backyard, the fence, the deck, the pergola, then Yellowwood is the brand of choice. Go to yellowwood.com to find a dealer that is closest to you. Download that Tide 100.9 app. What can you do with that? You can listen to all the shows, the games. You can chat with us. There's a chat box in the app. You can do that as well. I got to figure out how to chat back with you guys. Sometimes y'all send something out. Is that even possible, Wyatt? Can we chat them back if they send us something?
It is. You can actually send messages back. So don't be bad mouthing the show host too much.
I usually just read it and then respond back or have Dad respond back. So if you want to send that, we'll just do it over the radio. So I'm assuming if you send an app message, you're listening to the show. Because Corey Miller had somebody mad yesterday, and they were emailing me. Like, guys, I ain't got nothing. What do I got to do with this? Corey's my guy, so send it to him. Anyway, so download that app. If you want to email us, the email is wimpandbarry@yahoo.com. Kind of a slow sports time. You know, you had the Olympics there, so that was kind of fun to watch. Braves are playing late now, Dad, so there's not a ton of sports to watch right now, so we got to get to football here. There's some preseason football, but that's like flag football. Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm okay. Let me say this to all of our listeners. The words could and should mean nothing in athletics.
Coulda. We coulda.
You could have won. Should have won. And I'll say this to Barry. I'll just say it publicly because I don't want to. I was going to text him. When Houston Nutt comes on today, I don't want to get into anything with Hugh Freeze or with Houston Nutt. Houston is very sensitive about that. And I'll just say, you can ask questions as you want to ask. I'd appreciate it because I deal with him trying to get him on our show. So it's not necessary for us to stir that up in our, we can talk about the present, what the future is going to happen, but I'd rather not to discuss the past with you, Freeze. So should and could is what was said. You'll hear that today on our radio show when they play it back. That's what he said yesterday. CBS will have Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, Jenny Dale as the headliners for CBS in college football. There are 8 others, and I didn't try to write all of them down. I didn't know hardly any of them that will be doing the broadcast and their color people. Starts off with Ohio State and Akron, which is about like Barry said, a flag game. But there'll be 8 others. Ryan Williams, of course, is a really fine wideout. There's a lot of talk about that on the news today, about the wideouts all over. Georgia Tech did sign their first 5-star offensive tackle, John Petty, who's supposed to be very good. In the AP polls, I'm not a poll guy. I'm a poll guy after the season, not before the season. But if you're a poll person before the season, Georgia, of course, is 1, and Ohio State is 2. And Alabama is a 5, and Ole Miss is 6. LSU, Missouri is 11. LSU 13. Tennessee 15. Oklahoma 16. A&M 20. And Auburn is not in that 25. So those are some of the ones I didn't want to go down through all of them. If you're interested in that, you can see them. It's of some interest to some of you, and to others it doesn't really matter. Like me, you want to know what's happened when it's over. The Cleveland Indians, as I think about them, are 70-49, probably in a weak league, but they really have gone really playing. I hadn't kept up with them the way I should in baseball. It's just terrific. They played awfully well. I'm sure their league is weak. Cubs beat the Braves 9-8. I believe that's right. No, Braves 1-0. Oh, Diamondbacks. I'm sorry. To Cleveland 1 beat. I think that you're going to find by the time the first games come up, just a couple of weeks, that the SEC will announce that they're adopting an injury report before the first game now. I don't know that for 100% sure, but when I can try to dig up, that's what I basically tried to find out, or found out a little bit. So that's the report there. Outside of that, we had a lot of news around today. It's the same kind of news that we had yesterday, so I didn't want to particularly bore you with it. We have, I think, 2 good guests. I think Kevin does a good job, and of course, I've had a hard time sort of getting Houston on. He's been tied up or whatever, but finally got him on today at 8:15. So Barry's about right. There's not a whole lot we can talk about as far as everything's prognostication, what's going to happen, and a lot of articles written about stuff like that. And because people have to have something to write about, so that they do that. So anyway, if you have thoughts about what I said, you probably don't. But if you do, call Barry and we'll talk about them. That's it.
All right. One of the things, Wyatt and Dad, that is interesting to me about the top 25 is the guys that got good jobs. I'm talking about good jobs. Have done really well. When you look at Georgia, where'd their head coach come from? Nick Saban Tree. You go to number 3, Dan Lanning, Nick Saban Tree. Number 4, Sark was in here after he was at USC. Nick Saban, tied to Nick Saban before he goes to Texas. Obviously, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin came in here and changed his career under Nick Saban. Now, you got guys that went to Maryland, but the guys that got, and I would say maybe of the jobs, maybe Lane Kiffin's doing the best job. Of all those jobs, Ole Miss really shouldn't be number 6. If you know, based on the school, the tradition, all those things. Oregon's got the Nike money. Texas speaks for itself. And Georgia was a sleeping giant there. So I think that's one of the things that made it hard for Coach Saban. His coaches kept leaving. Then these guys are hiring Alabama guys. He wasn't getting any younger, so people weren't sure how long he's staying. But if I'm Coach Saban, I look at that thing, and I'd kind of jerk my pants up a little bit with Miss Terry and say, man, look at that. In the top 6, 4 of those guys were here at Alabama. That's not a coincidence, right, Dad? These guys learned the process. They took what they learned here. They probably added put their little mix into it as well. But these guys have been really successful, and they're following the Saban plan. Yeah,
I think they saw the overall organization of a football program. That's number 1. And right under that, A2 is the ability to recruit and to organize the recruiting. So I think the program is, he did his way. He was one voice. He was a guy that you knocked on this door before you went in. He was different personality-wise, which is fine. Everybody has their own personality. So, yeah, I think the things that you mentioned, they are places that you can win with if you get the right people, because the players are there. There are a lot of players up in the Northwest for Oregon. There are not as many as there are at Georgia and the surrounding areas of Georgia, but Georgia was a team that was almost there but not there. So, yeah, I would say that all these coaches have learned from Coach, and as he becomes a spokesman for Saturday football, which is good in some cases, I think, we should appreciate him and enjoy him.
Yeah, you talk about 4 of the top 6. That's not a coincidence, I don't think, and so good for those guys. But I do think, Oregon's got that Nike money behind it, so that really, really helps. So for Ole Miss to be number 6, I know we kind of laugh about Lane Kiffin and say he cost us a national championship here against wanting to throw the ball against Ohio State, but he was a good offense coordinator. He's kind of grown up a little bit, but for him to have those guys number 6, I think he may be doing the best job of all the Saban disciples, because he doesn't have the best job, in my particular opinion. All right, we'll take the first break. We got Philip Holden. We'll get to Philip when we get back. But we also do have the little clip with Hugh Freeze and Marty Smith, and what Hugh Freeze said. When you read it in print and you hear him say it, Hugh Freeze is a little bit cocky, but it wasn't, to me, and it may have rubbed you guys the wrong way. It wasn't as bad when I heard him say it as when you read it, and I hear what Dad says, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but I mean, you walk in after that 4th and 31 and say, we should have won that game. And
I understand. Yeah, I just said that because I thought that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah. 2 Minute Truck, they're at 1330 Martin Road East. That's where you go pick up your boxes, your packing supplies in preparation for this move. Whether it's a local, out of town, out of state, no problem. Let the professionals handle it. They'll take great care of you and your stuff. If you just need a guy to come to the house and move stuff from the attic to the basement to the attic, wherever, these guys will do it for you. 205-247-5050. It's 2 Minute Truck. Movers who care.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Tuesday morning. If you had your Regions Bank Visa debit card declined yesterday, most likely it was not your fault. The bank is reporting a system issue that lasted for several hours has been now resolved. A Regions media release emphasized the issue was technical and not involving cybercrime. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for all the local news, sports, and weather coverage throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Not doing too bad inside this accident we have here, still on the eastbound lanes of 2059 at Buttermilk Road. They've relocated it all to the left shoulder, so it is absolutely green in the area. You do not have the delays. And construction zones, of course, we've always got those. 2059.
Deal or text DEAL to 511-511.
Your order is back with a 90-day guarantee.
All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sky mostly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 94. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 72. Tomorrow partly to mostly sunny. The chance of a shower or thunderstorm by late afternoon. The high tomorrow at 93. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
Welcome back. Pressure treated pine from Great Southern. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, then you don't want a funny tweet here. Jim Shapiro says 30 years ago, he's right. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But now when you're going to coach like at the high school level, you have to take so many on courses, and I'm sure you need to do it. He said 30 years ago when I started coaching, the only thing I needed was a whistle. Today I need a background check, CPR certification, concussion test, first aid, WIAA, I don't know what state there's, general rules, football rules, elevated heat training, football tackling, and sportsmanship training. Oh my, how times have changed. And yes, they have. All right, to the Yellowwood hotline, get Philip in. Good morning, Philip.
Morning. Good morning, guys. Hey, Barry, there's a guy on X that's I've started following. He goes by the moniker of Big Game Boomer. And I like him because he puts up charts and stats and things like that I really get into. But he posted something the other day that was sort of interesting to me, the top 50 offenses in college football. And there's a program on there that got my attention. And again, I don't really know where he gets this information from or how he generates it, but he's got South Florida rated as the number 14 best offense in the nation. And there's 6 teams in the top 50 that Alabama plays this year that's ranked in the top 50. Oklahoma's rated number 9. Missouri is number 12. Alabama's number 11. Tennessee's 13. South Florida's 14. We don't play Mississippi State this year, but he's got them rated 48. And then on best defenses, the 50 best defenses, Georgia number 6, Clemson 7. He's got Oklahoma 8. He has Alabama rated as the 22nd best defense. And there are several teams that Alabama plays that are in that top 52. I think 7 teams. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. South Florida, that sort of got my attention. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I don't know anything about South Florida, but I do think I don't know this because I don't know much, but I do think defensively it will be interesting to see if Alabama gives up big plays. Some more. Let me change that. More big plays than they've given up in the past years. Will they cause some losses in the backfield? Yes. They'll tackle people in the backfield and cause some losses. But I do think on occasions they'll give up some long plays. I may be dead wrong.
I know what you mean, man. I understand. And Barry, I'll tell you another thing, too, that surprised me. Last night I got in from work rather late, and I had it on YouTube, and I like to watch some of those clips that they have up, and they had a clip, and it's entitled Alabama Open Practice. And I was shocked at that being on YouTube. I was absolutely shocked.
Well, I guess I don't know if that was from the scrimmage or from Fan Day. I know the scrimmage, because I know one of the kids that plays there, the families could go to the scrimmage, so the families are little Johnny's in there, so they're going to film little Johnny out there, and so maybe the family does it. They don't understand that you're not, think back to the high school days when little Johnny was out there, so that once one guy puts it up, then somebody can get it, and then everybody's posting it. So if you let people in, then stuff's going to get out. I mean, Wyatt can tell you that. He goes over there all the time. I think he said, I heard him say yesterday they had on the Jumbotron about not filming and all the different things. But come on, if you tell a little boy not to touch that hot stove, Philip, what's he going to do?
He's going to touch it.
He's going to touch that hot stove. And if you tell him not to film, they're going to film. Some of them are. Some people will follow it.
Now, keep in mind, this was more than just drills, and that was interesting, too. I enjoyed watching it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But it was more than just drills and guys backpedaling and catching passes and deflecting balls and getting the balls knocked out of the hand by a trainer and all that. I mean, they were running plays, and you could see formations and all that. I mean, I was not expecting that. That was not on my bingo card.
Yeah, but I mean, there's that many secrets really in football. I mean, I'm sure these coaches have seen just about everything. And it's by the time they play Georgia, they're going to have, I mean, in Wisconsin, they're not playing Western Kentucky. I don't know how much they'll show in that particular game. I mean, they'll play to win, but no, there are really a ton of secrets in college football at this point.
No, not really, but it was just sort of got my attention to see that live and in living color last night. I'm definitely not used to it, and under the cloak of secrecy that the program operated under, not only during Saban but for all the other coaches, it was very wide open. But I'll tell you what, I called Martin's show the other week, and I said 56, 42, 42, 38. And that was my prediction on how many points Alabama will score in the first 4 games.
We'll see. It should be interesting. I think the kids at Alabama are really enjoying this, and they'll really enjoy it if they start winning some football games. So we'll see how they play when it comes.
No doubt. If they can knock off the Georgia Bulldogs at home, it's going to be an incredible place over there, because it's going to be, at that point, it's going to be interesting, really interesting.
No doubt. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
All right. Wyatt, on Fan Day, I know you said you didn't go. Anybody could get in and watch the practice. And then I think they had the autograph session. And we've seen how they do it. They set the tables up. It used to be that was one thing they did. They would open the gates and people would just run. It's like, but so now the scrimmage was over. I'm assuming if somebody was there, call me. They are sending us a message. They set the tables up, and if you were a member of Yay Alabama, then you could get on the field and get an autograph. Surely, if some little kid walked down there and he was, I saw a clip of Jalen Milroe and some cutest little kid, and he was talking about his dad. I think was playing the college football game and playing with him, and Jalen Milroe was incredible with this little kid and autographed his jersey and all those things. I hope that they didn't turn some little kids away because they didn't have that stinking Yay Alabama coupon to get on the field. Do you know anything about any of that stuff as far as how they got down there and on the field and all?
So you had to be, I'm a student at Alabama, graduate student, and I'm in the media. So I'm getting both sides of these emails, from the athletics department and from the fan side of things. You had to have a membership. They were going to email you basically like an electronic ticket a couple of days before Fan Day, and you had to present that pass in order to get on the field. So if you didn't have it, you didn't get an autograph. So
I just,
you know, $12 to $18
I don't want to
get an autograph now.
Stir the pot, but Dad, to me, at some point, like, okay, we got to raise money, we got to make money for these NIL and this kind of stuff. But when you start, I mean, some people just generally cannot afford to be a member. Now, I know you can probably get on there and then cancel it, pay one-time $20 fee or whatever and get it. So it's probably not as bad as it sounds. But to make somebody have to be a member of Yay Alabama to give to these players to get down there and get an autograph, I don't know. That just, and I'm sure all the schools are doing it. That just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Are you okay with it?
Yeah, some degree. I think if they don't do that, they have everybody and their mother get in there. Try to, some people just don't want to pay the $20, and so they won't be a member at whatever you said it cost.
Well, I don't know what I guess to be a member, I'm sure if I wanted to be a member of Yay Alabama, they'll probably take anything I'll give them, right? I mean,
I thought there was a certain fee.
I don't know. There may be a number you got to give to be a member.
I think the minimum is $18 a month.
And so if I sign up for $18 a month, I'm sure I can cancel it at any time. So people may sign up to get the credential to go. I don't know, just to have to go through that to get a little kid on the field to go get an autograph. I know, I hear what you're saying. If you open it up, then But that's the way it used to be before the NIL days. They just think they had a time limit, and when the horn went off, it's over.
We're going through a comparison period now with fans and all, comparison of coaches, comparison of recruiting, comparison of how they morning practice versus afternoon practice, probably different defensively and offense. We're just going through a comparison period, and that gives people a lot to talk about when they are able to compare what coach did versus what the new coach does. They love to, they should have done it this way. Back when coach was doing it, they did that way. I have a bad habit sometimes of saying, well, Coach Bryant and them did it like this in in-state recruiting. So,
my boy Jason says you can't give Big Al a high five outside the stadium unless you join Yay Alabama. Then you got to get a loan to go eat at the Coleman Coliseum. So if you give Big Al a high five, Wyatt, and they check your credential and you're not a member of Yay Alabama, then I think you get a ticket. You get an $18 ticket because you touched Big Al.
You got to pay a fine to take a picture of Big Al.
You touch Big Al and you're not a member of Yay Alabama. This is what it's people. Come on.
There are some people who get into the games who, this is no joke, that really can't afford to go to the concession stand.
No, shoot, I know. It's crazy. You go to the concession stand. It's Coleman Coliseum. Jenny will take Mac up there. It'll be $50. He's going to eat one bite of the chicken finger. Stick it under the thing. So, anyway. All right, we'll get to break here. We'll get Kevin Skarbinski, and we'll see if he got an autograph over at Yay Alabama. But shout out to Jalen Milroe, man. If you haven't seen it, there's a little kid there. What a good guy. He made that kid's day. The kid was so cute, too. So those are great stories there. You listen to Tide 100.9. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m., The Martin Houston Show.
Join The Martin Houston Show for a Wednesday edition of the program. We'll keep reviewing the Alabama scrimmage. We'll also look forward to what's next for Alabama football as they continue to move forward toward that first kickoff. We'll find out what position groups are ahead, which ones still have a little work, and we'll also circle back on a couple things from Coach DeBoer's press conference. We'll have those conversations and more right here on the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WPBC. It's the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Not doing too bad inside this accident we have here. Still on the eastbound lanes of 2059 at Buttermilk Road. They've relocated it all to the left shoulder, so it is absolutely green in the area. You do not have the delays. And construction zones, of course, we've always got those. 2059 eastbound.
These changes within just a couple of days.
Text support to 511-511.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Yellowwood pressure treated pine from Great Southern. Build the fence, the deck, the pergola. There's only one choice if you wanted to last, and that would be Yellowwood. Go to yellowwood.com to find a dealer that is closest to you. All right, we get right to the Yellowwood hotline. He's right with the Birmingham lead. I think he was pretty impressed. I'm looking at his X timeline. I think he was pretty impressed with Steph Curry knocking in some three balls. They said Steph didn't show up to the last three games. He hadn't been in Paris till then, but they were glad he showed up. Kevin Skarbinski. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Morning. Good morning, guys. I plead guilty to being a massive Steph Curry fan, an unapologetic Steph Curry fan. Saw him play at Samford back in 2009. And again, with Davidson, of course, that was Samford's first year in the Southern Conference. and I've just always admired his game since. And the things he's one of the top 5 players of all time. Few people change the game. He changed the game with the way he turned the deep 3-point shot into a weapon. And now everybody wants to shoot 3-pointers. 5-footers, 6-footers, 7-footers. Even people who can't shoot the 3-point shot want to shoot the 3-point shot, but nobody makes shots like he made. And what he did in that last 2.5 minutes in the gold medal game, and then what he did to bring the U.S. back in the semifinals against Serbia, that's epic stuff. That's the stuff of legends.
All right, Kevin, you may scream at me when I say this, and I don't know the details, and I think you probably do more than Dad and I do. The Hoover situation. Now, there's no doubt those coaches were out of line. That's not even debatable from what you saw on film. But my question is it, whenever these things happen and a lawyer gets involved, you know where the next step's going. Is there ever a chance to save these guys, though? Like, all right, we're going to suspend you for 6 games. We're going to have you take some counseling, doing some things instead. To me, the lazy way out is to always fire these guys. Now that their coaching career is probably over. Although I thought Hugh Freeze was over when he left Ole Miss and he's back at Auburn. Was there any way to save these 2 guys, suspend them, give them some? That's what Nick Saban tries to do. Or was the only way to handle this? Now, you're going to get killed if you save them, so I think people run from that. They're going to get a lot of negative publicity. But, the guy had a track record there at Clay Chalkful. I don't know that any of this stuff I don't think Hoover would have hired him had they known the things that were going on. Is it the lazy way to always fire the guys, or were these guys not even savable at all?
Well, I don't know that I would use the word lazy. It's certainly the easiest way to resolve a situation like that is to, they say they resigned, but obviously it wasn't. I don't think anyone believes it was a voluntary resignation. They really didn't have a choice. Once those practice videos went public and then went viral, and they were far out of line. They were so far over the line in their behavior on those videos that it is hard. It's hard to justify allowing them to continue to coach those young men. One thing I think I would have liked to have seen was a little bit of a longer investigation, if you will, a little more in-depth review of their behavior. Was this were these isolated incidents? A lot of people would say, well, if they did that, what do they do that we haven't seen? And I think that's a dangerous road to go down, to assume that they are always, putting their hands on players, running, knocking players to the dirt. The vulgar gesture, as much as anything, the vulgar gesture that in the player's face was just, I don't know that I've ever seen that. And I've watched a lot of college football practice. Back in the day when it was far more brutal, and practices were far more challenging than they are now on a regular basis. You used to be able to watch Auburn practice every day when I was the Auburn beat writer for the Birmingham News with Pat Dye and Wayne Hall, and some of the toughest, James Daniel. You can go on, some of the toughest football coaches you can think of ever, and so but they really didn't have a choice. And like you said, when lawyers, when the family of one of the players retained a lawyer and they had a press conference talking about suing basically everyone in sight, then I think that certainly would scare the school district, and they really didn't have a lot of choice there. The only thing I would say is I think it was probably the right decision. I don't know that you can justify bringing them back, because it was so blatant, so flagrant, and it was on tape. There's really no It's hard to argue. It's hard to defend yourself against that tape and against the emotional reaction that people had when they saw it.
Yeah, I guess lazy was a bad word. Easy, I guess, would say. Once you saw that lawyer come out and say that they didn't think those two coaches should be working anymore, at that point, it was over. It was the lawyer. If the lawyer did not say that, maybe he had a chance. But once they said that's the society now. So I don't know. Can these guys? I was just hoping maybe you could try to help them a little bit, suspend them a year, and see if they can go through certain things. If they meet all the standards that you meet, then maybe let them come back. Maybe Hoover didn't want to go through all that, but this doesn't seem like that is ever an option, for a coach when these things happen.
I was disappointed. That's certainly not that the family hired a lawyer, not that the lawyers had a press conference, not that they made a strong case. However, for them, I don't remember there were a couple of lawyers, I don't remember which one specifically said, as you just referenced, they should never coach again. That's not a judgment that lawyer is professionally equipped to make.
Yeah. Because
they have not, I feel pretty confident saying they had not done a deep dive into either coach's history. What is their pattern of behavior? Was this were these isolated incidents? We can believe they weren't, but what did Tom Cruise say in A Few Good Men? It doesn't matter what I believe. It only matters what I can prove when it comes to the law. So, you're talking about these men's future. You have to take that into consideration too, and not just they just really they just kind of lost it in those situations. And let's be clear though, that there is no as tough a sport as football is, there is no reason for them to do any coach to do what those guys did.
No,
in those video clips.
I agree to that.
No, I didn't want to watch. Well, I don't want to get into it because I was going to ask that, but I refrained from doing so. Alabama defensively is going to be quite different than it has been over the past 2 or 3 defensive coordinators. They've been the past 2 or 3 have been guys who've worked with Coach. One's at Georgia. And they go into what they call a swarm defense, which I don't know if you know any thoughts about the concern that Alabama might have defensively because it's new and it's a read defense, or am I trying to be too technical about something I don't know much about?
Well, you know more about it than you like to let on, but sometimes. But, it is going to be interesting to see. Because, first of all, we've discussed this before. Alabama's defense, while it has remained very good, has not been elite since Jeremy Pruitt left as defensive coordinator. It was elite under Kirby Smart for a long time, and then Jeremy Pruitt came in, and it was elite for a couple of years with him as a defensive coordinator, and then it dropped off, and the proof is in the national stats. They used to finish in the top 5 and lead the nation in scoring defense and total defense. Well, they dropped down. Now, instead of being, 1, 2, or 3, they were 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They were still good, but they weren't as good. Now, it's one of the things that everyone has told us. We've heard this 1,000 times, how complex the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, et cetera, defenses were. That it took time to grasp the intricacies of those defenses. And rare was the guy who could come in as a freshman like Caleb Downs, like Minkah Fitzpatrick, and really grasp what they were looking for. So this is from what I've heard and what people have said is a simpler defense. And you do have to simplify things. They simplified things. They simplified their communication system because of the hurry up, no huddle offense. They didn't have time to make the adjustments on defense that Nick Saban was so good and Kirby Smart were so good at making pre-snap. It's a little tougher now. So that's going to be an area, especially because Kalen DeBoer is an offensive guy. That's his area of expertise. So there's going to be a little more scrutiny, I think, on Alabama's defense to, the standard for great defense is also different than it was in 2009, 10, 11, and 12 when Alabama's defense was giving up, 9, 10, 11 points a game. That's not realistic the way the game is played now. But can they avoid those, the 52 to 49 shootouts, whatever the score was at Tennessee a couple of years ago? Those are the kind of things they need to try to tamp down. And there will be some alarm if they start giving up points in large numbers.
I pointed out to Dad, no big secret, the top 25. I was pretty interested to meet Georgia. Kirby Smart was here, was number 1. Oregon, Dan Lanning was here at one point. Texas, was number 4. We know Sark was here, and then, of course, Alabama, and then Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin was here. Of all those jobs, Ole Miss is probably the worst as far as a team that, the tradition and all that, to be number 6, pretty amazing what Lane Kiffin's done. Now, if you take Nick Saban's process and some of the things he did, you add your stuff to it, but you get a really good job as well. That's got to make Nick Saban pretty darn proud behind the scenes to have 4 teams, 4 coaches that worked here at Alabama in the top 6 here in the preseason AP poll.
Oh, absolutely. And his influence is so obvious on so many of those guys. And it's also been, it's been nice to see. And while Kiffin being Kiffin has long loved to poke fun at Nick and some of his idiosyncrasies and how they clashed at times, he has always been very quick to praise him for taking a chance on him when really no one else would. No one else really had the strength or the control of their program to take a flyer on a guy like Lane when Nick did. So to see that influence, to see his influence just in the top, in the preseason top 25, that's a combination of respect for what they did in last year and recent years, and then of course expectations for what they're going to do this year. That's not the same if they don't come out of the Nick Saban school. They're not the same. None of those coaches are the same. Sark, especially, as a guy who had a great opportunity, lost it, had personal issues, overcame them, got another chance, made the most of it. So, none of those guys would be where they are without Nick Saban. So it's just like, just like your children, right? When one of your sons makes the honor roll in college, or one of your son, or the dean's list, I should say. Another son just made an A in his one summer class that he just took, and that makes you feel good, because you like to think you have some influence on the people in your orbit, and when they have success, that's a pretty good indicator of that.
Yeah, that.
The lawsuits that we have against NIL or money that the universities have given to people in the past. Now they got another lawsuit going. Are we going? Too much for me to understand. To be honest with you, are we going to ever have a solid answer to transfer portal? This is a corny question because everybody wants to know the answer to that, I guess. Are we going to ever have an answer to transfer portal or to the behind-the-scenes giving guys? We're going to have behind-the-scenes cheating, in my opinion, that we're not going. The rules are not so valid that everybody understands them and goes by them. Am I wrong on that, or is it just everything's going to be okay?
Well, I think there's always going to be guys who go beyond whatever the rules are. There are always going to be guys that operate in the gray areas, some that go way beyond the gray area. And so that's not what I think people are looking for. I think what everyone wants, and the coaches especially, is some kind of stability.
Yeah.
Some kind of understanding that, okay, what we're doing today is what we're going to do tomorrow, what we're going to do next week, next month, next off season, next season, and not this massive uncertainty of what the system's going to look like 6 months from now or 2 years from now. Because you guys know when you don't just recruit for the next year, for example. You've got to be recruiting 2, 3, 4 years down the line if you want to build a successful program. And it's harder to build a program now. It's more about building individual teams in individual years because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, because guys get disgruntled and now they have a way out, an easier way out than they had before. They don't have to sit out, they transfer, et cetera. So I think stability is what everyone's looking for, Wimp, and I think we will not have stability until we have collective bargaining. Whatever form that takes, whether it's, and players don't have to be members of a union. They don't have to be considered employees to be able to bargain as a group with, the administration of college athletics, with athletic directors. I don't think presidents and chancellors would get involved on a granular level in making these decisions, but, so it would be more ADs and those types of athletics administrators involved in this from the university side. And both sides have representatives. They sit down, they hammer out agreements on what is that percentage of revenue sharing going to be. We know because of this lawsuit what it's going to be in the first 10 years, but what's that going to be? What are the rules regarding practice? How often can you practice? How long can you practice? How many days can you hit? The kind of things you see in the NFL, because the NFL has a players association that represents the players, and it's got, the owners who represent the clubs or management, and those two sides get together. They don't always agree. Sometimes they have vast disagreements, but they sit down and hammer it out for the good of the sport. Now, that's another thing that, are we ever going to get to a point where everyone is looking out, or to some degree they have one eye on the good of the sport and one eye on what's best for their program? That's a bigger hurdle to jump, getting everyone to realize that they're all better if the system is stronger. If college football is good from coast to coast, if it matters from coast to coast, or if it becomes just a deep South Sun Belt kind of game for the most part, with a few Big Ten exceptions, is that good for the sport? And I don't think it is.
Well, knowing nothing, everything that we do, we lawyer up. Everything, every cotton picking rule is made, every cotton picking thing that we try to do, somebody lawyers up, and the lawyers are making money. I know about lawyer. I know about lawyering up. People lawyer up, and it can never be changed. I mean, it's always a problem because of that.
Well, it goes back to Barry's original question about the Hoover situation. When you get lawyers, what are lawyers? Lawyers are advocates, right? They represent their clients. Jeffrey Kessler, the lead lawyer for the plaintiffs in the House case against that they're settling, that has now gone to the U.S. District Court judge for her to review the settlement terms. Yeah. She has to approve or not for this thing to go into effect. Those lawyers are advocates, as they should, and they're supposed to represent their clients. So that's why you have to have representation on both sides. That's why I don't think we'll ever have any kind of, a labor peace, if you will, until the two sides have representatives, duly elected representatives. And I don't know how you get to that. That's another question to be decided. But if two sides can sit down at a table and say, okay, these are the issues that we have to resolve. Let's resolve them for the good of the sport. There's got to be give and take. There's going to be revenue sharing now with the players. That there's not been direct revenue sharing. Schools have not paid the players a percentage of the television revenue, ticket revenue. Well, that's happening. It's coming. It's part of the settlement. So, and even then, we'll never have complete karma and kumbaya and everybody holding hands and singing together. Everybody's got to have self-interest, and that gets in the way in a lot of different industries and situations.
Yeah, I could see this. My understanding is next year, every NIL deal over $600 is going to have to be approved. So, Auburn's doing great in recruiting right now, but now they're probably saying, hey, this is what you're going to make. And that's going to change. If those collectives go away, what they're telling them they can get, I'm not saying Auburn, everybody, and then what they actually get could be two different numbers. I hope the coaches are being careful about what they tell them.
No, they're not.
Because you're going to hear a lot of families screaming, I was promised this, and when we got there, we got this. That's coming, Kevin.
It starts off with, I thought you told me. I thought you told me first sentence.
I thought.
You said, wait a minute, you said, and the other side says, no, I didn't say that. That's not what I said.
I'm going to the transfer portal.
If I whisper something in your ear, Kevin, I tell you to tell 5 other people and whisper it, by the time it got to the very end, there's no telling what will come out. And these guys are certainly not going to put this on a piece of paper and tell them what they're going to get when they get there. So it's going to be he said, she said.
See, that's what we've got to have, Barry. We've got to have. This has got to be standardized. There have to be, there've got to be written contracts. They've got to be within the rules because look, we've already seen there was. I can't think of the school even, let alone the player who signed an NIL deal that neither he nor his family understood, paid his agent would pay his agent in the future a percentage of his NFL earnings year after year. I mean, that's, first of all, how low can you be to try to take advantage of, you're dealing with high school young men in that case. And look, how many grown men and women are savvy enough to understand what a contract says, what it means, the language in a contract. So that's what, again, you need representation. The players need representation. Each player needs somebody that they trust to look over these deals and say, okay, wait a minute, you can't agree to that. This guy, if someone with any kind of business sense or contract sense had read that NIL deal in which that player, and it was a signed contract if I understand right, was pledging part of his NFL earnings every year for 10 years to this agent to get him an NIL deal at whatever school it was. I mean, that's deplorable. I mean, that's the kind of thing that can happen. So that's what you don't want that. You don't want people taking advantage of these young men who have the opportunity to, make money based on their talent and performance and their hard work, and then take care of their families. You don't want to see those guys taken advantage of.
Yeah, I can see it now. I thought you said you said no, man, that was 1,000, not 100,000. Anyway,
yeah.
All right,
put it in writing.
Yeah,
put it in writing.
Yeah, they're not going to do that either. All right, let's tell everybody where you can find you, Kevin.
Yeah, best thing to do, follow me on Twitter /X at Kevin Skarbinski. By the way, I started reading it. There's a great story on Will Anderson. It is a long form story. It's a new website. I think it's called Go Long. It's about deep, in-depth feature stories. Really good piece. I didn't even get into it probably halfway through. And there's some interesting things about his last year at Alabama, I understand from the sub-headline. So check that out. So follow me on Twitter at Kevin Skarbinski. Read me in the lead. You can go to BirminghamLead.com twice a week. And then also starting August 31st, we had a meeting yesterday, did some brainstorming. Scott Griffin and I on CBS 42 in Birmingham, 6:30 to 7, every Saturday evening. We will be breaking down the games that have already happened, looking at the games that are coming up that night. And it'll be fast and furious and kind of like our old Smash Mouth radio show. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right. While we've been on, Steph hit 3 more threes. Thank you, Kevin.
That's right.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm on vacation. Thanks, guys. See you.
All right. Thank you for Yellowwood Pressure Treated Pine for making the 7 o'clock hour possible. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want it.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Hey, coming up on the Tuesday edition of The Game, Mike Detillier will also feature Tony Sakalas. We're going to recap Alabama defensive players and coaches. That and a lot more starting at 2 p.m. here on The Game on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, good news, 2059 eastbound at Buttermilk. That earlier accident, that's a goner, so no worries there. Otherwise, traffic is moving smooth in the rest of the area. Tuesday morning is actually getting off to a nice and smooth start. We've got Lurleen Wallace and McFarland Boulevard. That intersection is pretty much its typical. You're stopping and starting. And also 2059 at Joe Malisham Parkway. No delays there. With your Tuscaloosa traffic now, I'm Tammy Thomas.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
News from the NFL, where New York Jets holdout pass rusher Hassan Reddick has requested a trade from the team who acquired him in a trade with the Eagles this offseason. The Jets have responded saying they have no plans on trading Reddick, who has 1 year left on his current contract that pays him $14.25 million. In baseball games of note, the Dodgers, leaders in the NL West, knock off the Brewers. The NL Central leaders 5-2 in his return from injury. LA's Mookie Betts hit a home run and drove in 3. Shohei Ohtani blasted his 36th home run of the year. White Sox, the worst team in baseball, beat the Yankees 12-2. New York came into the game tied for the best record in all of baseball, but New York drops a half game back of idle Baltimore for the AL East lead and that major league best record with that loss. Astros beat the Rays 6-1. Houston's won 6 in a row. They move a half game up.
.com/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Text DEAL to 511-511 today. All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental-car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance and is backed by an entire team of people you know and trust. Rent a Toyota and let's go places. Reserving yours is a breeze at TuscaloosaToyota.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky mostly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 94. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 72. Tomorrow partly to mostly.
Visit us at 3537 Skyland Boulevard East or check us out online. BMWofTuscaloosa.com. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Inside the locker room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside the Locker Room. 205-342-9904 if you'd like to get in on the show with us this morning. Houston Nutt will join us here in about a little less than 10 minutes. Allstate Insurance agent. He helps us kick off this 8 o'clock hour. That's Andrew Conifer out at 4705 McFarland Boulevard, Suite 3 over in Northport. Don't just pay the bill. Know exactly what you got coverage-wise. You may have too much or you may need more, but let Andrew and his staff look at your stuff. They'll find the best solution for you. Give them a call today, 205-722-9201. Andrew Conifer, Allstate Insurance. I'll get to the Andrew Conifer hotline and get Tom in. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Good morning, Barry. Good morning, Coach. How are y'all this morning?
We're good. How are you?
Okay. I'm good. Thanks for asking. You know, I was thinking about one of your comments earlier about coach and the coaching tree and who all is kind of in the top 10 with that came from that. But, you know, and I was thinking that, you know, each one of these, maybe not the Oregon coach, but the rest of them were established as far as coaches are concerned. I would have to say that Sarkisian and even Coach Kiffin all came out of the Pete Carroll organization at SC. You know, that's kind of where they came to prominence as coaches. And I think, but I think Coach Saban deserves a lot of credit because Pippen and Sarkisian both kind of in a tailspin, were they not, in their career, and he kind of brought them in and righted the ship for them and put them on a path to success.
Yeah, obviously he took a chance on them because they were both fired. Now, I mean,
right.
Steve Sarkisian, not for his coaching, for other things. Lane Kiffin was fired for not coaching very well. So he came here and maybe, you take a little bit from everybody you work for. So I'm sure he took some stuff from Coach Saban, also some stuff from what he learned at USC. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he even admits the organizational skills and, how to run a program. And so obviously he wasn't doing that at SC when he was let go. And I think that's where Coach really benefited him was, kind of putting him on the road of being able to run a program, not necessarily evaluating and coaching skills. I think both of them had that, but I see it as kind of, bringing them in and saying, hey, look, this is how we do it. This is what works for us. And like you say, they took from that and had their own stuff they added to it.
Yeah, I know. I know when Lane Kiffin was at Tennessee, I guess he was just there that 1 year. I was at South Carolina then, and I know people try to say, oh, he's a lazy recruiter. Man, he was recruiting so hard, but they were coming into South Carolina, and he was bringing a lot of these girls, like Tennessee girls, to the high school games and stuff.
Yeah.
He was doing it, and so he was recruiting. I mean, he was finding different ways to recruit. He was recruiting really well. I think if he'd have stayed at Tennessee, he probably would have been pretty successful, to be honest with you.
I do too, and I think his dad, I think about that game they come in and Cody had the block and all that kind of stuff, but I think about his dad was helping him, and everybody knows his reputation for defense, but I think, too, that he would have been very successful at Tennessee. It's been interesting to see how that would have played out had he stayed.
Yeah, well, and the Tennessee fan, they thought he was going to do well because usually you're not mad when they're throwing mattresses out the window because they thought that he was going to change this thing. Most of the time, you want the guy gone. They didn't want him to leave. Yeah. They were
exactly.
They were mad he was leaving. So
that's exactly right because they could see. I mean, I saw in that game there when they rolled in against Alabama. That was as good a coaching job one game, and I know one game don't make a career. I'm not trying to play like that, but you could see, how they could be. You know what I mean? How he could be.
Yeah.
That's what I took from that.
Yeah, being, when he was at Tennessee, obviously he hadn't been in Alabama at that point. Then once he was at Alabama, and then he goes to Ole Miss, he knows things that hurt Alabama's defense. Now, he hadn't beat them, but he's played them pretty darn well.
Yeah, well, you were talking about yesterday. He would run plays just to make Coach Saban mad at practice when he was at Alabama. Now he gets to do that all he wants to at Ole Miss when he goes over there. And they put up pretty good. Ole Miss has always put up a good fight. And with Coach Freeze, a couple of times they actually won against Alabama.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll hear from that later on in the show. So, Tom, we appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I want to say this before you get to that. Now, I heard somebody say on this show that you can make your mouth say anything.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. But I think anybody that's an Auburn fan or a coach that said that could legitimately say Auburn should have won that game. If you flip that and Alabama lost on a 4th and 31, I think we would be saying Alabama should have won that game, correct?
That's true. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So anyway, Tuscaloosa Toyota. Go to TuscaloosaToyota.com. They've got the new inventory right there on the website, the pre-owned. You can schedule a service, rent a Toyota, order a part. The 3rd annual Tuscaloosa Toyota Classic is coming up September 9 through 15 at an Old Colony Golf Complex. We'll ask Justin a little bit about that tomorrow. But Tuscaloosa Toyota is taking great care of my people, and they'll do the same for you. Swing by Skyland Boulevard or go to the website and tell them that Wimp and Barry sent you. Houston Nutt is next. Rest of Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC is the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, it's a pretty beautiful day in the neighborhood, my friends. Other than the normal rush to work delays we have on McFarland Boulevard, you're going to find that in both directions between Watermelon and 69. 69 is a little bit of a heavy load right now on the southbound hookup to Northwood Lakes Drive as that
deal or text deal to 511-511.
Your order is back with a 90-day guarantee.
All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky mostly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 94. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 72. Tomorrow partly to mostly sunny. The chance of a shower or thunderstorm by late afternoon. The high tomorrow at 93. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. All right, we'll get right up to the Tuscaloosa Toyota hotline. Obviously, former head coach at Ole Miss, Arkansas, Boise State. He's a granddad now. Coach, have you ever said no as a granddad? Houston. Coach Houston Nutt. What do your grandkids call you, Houston?
Well, there's 3 years old and 1 year of age, so I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting, but it's getting close. Yeah, it's getting close. I think it's going to be close to Pappy, something like that.
Pappy. Has Pappy ever said no to the 3-year-old?
Actually, I have. He doesn't. He doesn't like that word, I don't think. But I've said that one or twice.
I mean, I'm not talking about don't touch the hot stove. I'm talking about when they really kind of want something. You still say no?
Yeah. Probably not. Not right now.
Yeah, there you go. That.
Houston, thank you for being on. Can you imagine that we haven't had you in a good while, that we're sitting here now? I want to talk about the present and the future of 16 teams in this league, with Stanford in the ACC, with Oregon in the Big Ten, with the Power teams in the Big 12. The transfer portal and the LIB, you can argue about all that you want to, but when I first started, there were 10 teams in the league. It's quite unusual, isn't it?
Well, it really is. When you think about it, go back to even the announcement of Oklahoma, Texas to the SEC, I really thought, and that can't be right. Thought it was an April Fool's joke or something. And then USC, Oregon, now they're going to play Ohio State and Michigan. And, really the one that blows my mind the most is the ACC with teams that are going to travel about 3 time zones. They're going to travel all the way across the United States. And now let's get back for class and all those things. I'm really anxious to see how that works. But, we're in a different world. There's no question about it. With NIL portal, visited a couple of teams here in the last few weeks, and it's just different. I'll tell you, the mind-boggling thing, and you guys as former coaches, is a lot of these teams don't have their team intact even after spring. They've gotten transfers, 24, 25, total 26, some of them 28, and 15 of those say don't show up until July or close to August, and they hadn't gone through spring. And they're a little older players. So they feel like they know what they're going to do, but you don't know, and where you're going to put them and piece them in and fill them in, and how's that locker room going to be. I tell you, it's just a different world.
Yeah, sure is, Barry.
how much has recruiting probably changed? You know, when we were all doing it, when I was doing it, guy walked in, man, if he had a Duke shirt on or North Carolina or Kentucky, we always laughed, said that's a strong shirt. When he walks in, he's got everybody's attention. But I don't know how much, you know, now it's, what's your NIL? You know, the shirt's strong, but you got to bring it with the NIL as well. And so, you're not supposed to discuss how much these guys are going to make in NIL, but it seems like I believe that's happening. Recruiting's really changed. Relationships and all that, I guess, matter. They don't seem to matter quite as much now as how much can you give me. It's tough out there, isn't it, Houston?
I think it is. And, you know, we all worked really hard, you know, during our time is to build that relationship. And you want to know what's that young man like on his bologna sandwich and cheeseburger and know the sister, the aunt, the brother, you know, all those things. You build that relationship. But then it comes down to two words at the end, and you hit it. It's still going to come down as good as that relationship is, you know, that's what you want. You want to work hard at that relationship, but it comes down to two words at the end. How much?
Yeah.
How much? Now, because so-and-so's offered me this, how much? And so, I'll tell you the thing that would be really tough. Let's say, for example, I've got Darren, in today's world, I got Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis. I'll tell you what would keep me up at night was, now you know that they're coming after your players. So you got to keep your eggs in the basket. They're coming after your guys, and I could just see Felix say, Coach, I just got off for 1.5 now. Can you match it?
Yeah.
And so you're going to these collectives, guys. I'm going to need another 500,000 now. We got to up this ante, and we don't want to lose him. And I tell you, that's got to be the biggest nightmare right there, just losing good players that are on your team. And I really feel sorry for the Murray State. You mentioned Boise State, Murray State. The Murray State, I had some really good players. I could see these guys just getting poached now, getting poached big time. Because when you look around the conference, as I start to do radio, it's hard. But for me, because I really don't know about these teams because of the players they've gotten from some division, some 1AAs, you know, some smaller schools.
Yeah, we're talking Coach Houston. Now, if you were in Arkansas or Ole Miss, two SEC schools, and you had 105 scholarships, all right, so that's the number. You can go to 105. You can give them fulls, you can give them partials, whatever. I think what Dabo's saying is, hey, when I had 115 guys, there's probably 20 or 25 guys that kind of knew their role. Their role was to be a scout team guy, and they were happy to do it. Yep. And so it was easier to keep my locker room happy. Now you give me 105. What do I do with it? Do I go try to get 105 4 stars? Well, that locker room's going to be hard to manage. Do I take 90 and then just find me 15 guys that know their role? I think the hardest thing right now is for guys to know their role. The top guys all think they're going to play right away. How would you handle your 105 scholarships, Houston?
Well, that's a great question. I feel like this, that, you know, I always fought for, 90 scholarships, between 90, 92. And so now if you say 105, I'm going to really hit that number of 90 to 92. And then to me, the ones that have been there, you've got, as you mentioned, scout team guys that know their role, and maybe he's made the kickoff team. He's worked hard. He's great in the locker room, goes to class every day, and then he's contributing on special teams. I would give that guy a scholarship. Wouldn't hesitate.
Yeah.
And so I would try to keep back a few because when you say 105, if you just start feeling that's one thing. Go get good players, and that's fine. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. But I think now you're going to have the leeway of keeping them because I know what Dabo's saying. I mean, we've all had those walk-on stories and those guys that made the investment, their parents sacrificed to get them in school. And what's amazing is those guys were usually always the ones that gave back to the university when they left. They gave back first. It wasn't really your first-round draft pick. It was more of those guys that had gone through the tough times of walking on. So, I kind of agree with Dabo a little bit on that side of it because you want to keep it. But again, it goes back to what your dad's saying. Hey, we're in a whole different world with everything. And from NIL to transfer portal, now the 105 scholarships, man, this is a lot to manage now.
Yeah, I hear John Calipari talking about 13, the guys that he signed. It was miserable for him to manage. So he says, now I'm going to get me 9 or 10 that are big-time players. I may take 3 or 4 that are just understand their role. They're not going to be expected to play. And it's a lot easier to manage that locker room than it is if I get 10 McDonald's All-Americans, 3 guys that were 4 stars. So you get some injuries. You know, that thing could get thin fast on you. I don't know what the answer is. I guess these coaches will have to try to figure it out.
No doubt.
Houston, because of our Alabama listeners, we're going through certainly a different time, so I wanted to mention that. And I think Coach DeVore's come in and done a good job personality-wise. Everybody has to coach their own personality to some degree. Mm-hmm. But I think he's been able to come in and do it kind of his way. He's going to have morning practices rather than afternoon practices. He has music at practice versus nobody ever did that. He hired the head coach at South Alabama to run the defense, who's a friend of his in the past. He's done it, and the Georgia game is the 4th game, and Wisconsin's the 3rd game. The first 2 games you ought to win. It's gone well now, and the money's big for him. The contract's where he's going to get paid if he doesn't make it, but it's an interesting time for him, and as they go through the season, comment on, your thinking about that as he goes through the season.
Yeah. Just looking from afar, I always enjoyed watching his teams play. I thought his teams played really hard at Washington, and the way he recruited, you kind of admire the things he's done. Now, again, the old saying is, well, you never want to follow the man. Yeah. And, of course, the man being Coach Saban, I mean, it's the most difficult thing there is. But I tell you, the thing you respect is just what you said. He only can be himself. The thing about an 18, 19-year-old, they know you can't fool them. They know when you're counterfeit. They know when you're not real. And so to be able to start to put his thumbprint, his blueprint, his way, I think is very important. And not that he's not going to take advice from Coach Saban, and I understand that Coach Saban is still around, and what an office to go to hear, what one of the greatest coaches that ever did it, to be able to get some advice like that. But when it comes back down to that locker room and that team meeting room, it's Coach DeVore's way. There's one head coach, and all eyes are on him. And so this is a tough job. It's a great job. It's a tough job because why? Alabama fans, I've spoken to enough Red Elephant clubs that they expect championships, and that's what they're used to. And so that's the bottom line. You got to win. And Frank Broyles was always, I love what Frank Broyles would come tell me, guys, would be, Houston, I really appreciate how you get your players involved in the community. And that's wonderful. I'm glad that they're graduating, but let me remind you of one thing. I pay you to win. And so, he was so transparent, and I appreciated that because the bottom line is, hey, you got to win, and that's the bottom line. And so, whether he plays music or he doesn't, he's doing things his way. I think the players will see that, and they'll follow that they this is our leader, this is our head coach now, and there's always going to be a little bit, well, we didn't do it that way last year now. And so that's where winning is really important, to get off on the right foot. And 18, 19, I don't care how old you are, 18, 19, freshman through freshman, the bottom line is how you spell fun is W-I-N.
Yeah. No doubt. And he's come in. When Coach Perkins came in, he did a lot of things that alienated people. Took down Coach Bryant's tower. This guy's come in and really hasn't done any controversial things. So everybody is on board now. And he's really easy to like. I mean, he's He talks to everybody. He's down to earth. Like, you can't believe how down to earth an Alabama football coach is. I wanted to get your opinion. How did you handle the media? Was it one voice like Nick Saban? Did you let your assistants talk to the media? Now, Houston here, these assistants, like every week, they got the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and then the head coach. These media guys are getting worn out and having to be up there in the complex to listen to these guys. I'm getting to the point now, like, guys, let's wait till there's a game. Let's shut the doors. We don't have to hear from y'all every single week. What was your philosophy on handling the media with your assistants and yourself?
You know, here's the thing. I kind of always admired Coach Saban for being able to say, this is one voice, it's one voice only. And everywhere I've been, the SID would come to you and say, hey, we need the offensive coordinator today. We need the defensive coordinator today. And so I just assumed that's the way it was, you know, coming from Murray State, Boise State. So I got locked in early. But now I think there's something to, you know, you all want to be singing the same song on the same verse now. I think that's very, very important because, as you know, the media said, oh, wait a minute, now you said this, and the head coach said that. You know, watch out. And that's where Coach Saban was ahead of the game, where he took that out of the equation. So, I you know, again, I've always was one that just followed instructions and went with, I was told to have the defensive coordinator down there for an interview at such and such time. I told him to go down there and do it. And there may have been a few times where I'd say, hey, this is what we're saying. This is what we're saying about our team. This is what we're saying about injuries. This is what we're saying about attitude, and this is expectations. We're going to promise little and accomplish a lot. Kind of our attitude is. So, you know, I think you got to be on the same page. So to answer your question, I didn't have that luxury of telling everybody one voice. Period.
Yeah. If you had to do over again, would you do it the way Saban did it?
I think that's the way. I think that's the way. It eliminates a lot of problems.
That's right. Unless like at Spurrier, when the defensive backs didn't do well, and then I was in South Carolina, they asked him about it. He's like, I don't know. Go get him out of the shower. Ask him. I don't coach the defensive backs. That's called rolling them. That's called rolling them under the bus there, Houston.
Houston, before we let you go, let's get off football and talk about your brother. I've been thinking about him a great deal because coached against him and care a lot about him and your family. And I know he's been through some of that red stuff because Annette had that kind of problem. Tell our listeners about him and where he stands today.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Coach. In fact, he's just got down here with me. I went to Columbia, Missouri to get him. Did that, the Red Devils, what you're talking about, that's the chemo. Yeah. And he starts his second round of treatments. Now, the good news is, you know, the tumor, the size of a tumor is the size of a golf ball in his thigh. And so that went from a golf ball size to the size of an almond, and they removed it about 10 days ago. That's good news.
Good.
And the PET scan, everything said it was clear, and Vicky got all excited, thinking, okay, no more cancer treatments, right? No, doctor says no, didn't say that. And so this sarcoma is very aggressive, so he's got to go do a second round. So he's back to doing the second round. He stays with me 21 days, and every 21 days he'll go back to Columbia and take his medicine, take the dosage. But hey, so far so good, Coach, and I appreciate you thinking about him because as many times as I took teams to cancer hospitals and Children's Hospital, Little Rock, and St. Jude's, I tell you, I had no idea what these patients go through. Yeah. And so I tell you what, it is something else, though, what they go through.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you being on. I don't try to bug you much, but I appreciate you being on. And
always enjoy it.
Yeah,
always
keep me posted, not publicly, but keep me posted on. You got my email and. Tell me how he's doing. I don't want to butt in and be nosy, but I hope he gets better.
You bet. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, Barry.
Hey, say no to the grandkids every once in a while.
I will, my man.
See ya.
All right, now.
See ya.
Thank you.
All right, there's Coach Houston Nutt. What a good guy. and he could still do it if he wanted to. That guy can motivate people. All right, let's tell them about Bryant Bank, and then we'll get to break.
Well, Bryant Bank has the 4 locations we talk about in Tuscaloosa, and the many locations that they have in Birmingham. It's a traditional banking experience that you'll go through. You can enjoy online banking accessible around the clock. You can give you, I think, the freedom and flexibility to sort of bank the way you want to bank. Of course, the headquarters was started in, I guess, 2005 in Tuscaloosa, and it's been a bank with the bankers and the bank that are interested in the kids, in the community, same zip code, same area code by you, and basically that you've moved in. So go by there and visit with them. They'll be darn sure that your funds are kept intact. They do a great job of handling that. So appreciate them being on our show. We like to have local people advertise on the show. We appreciate it. Go by there and tell them that you heard it inside the locker room, and whatever they need to do for you, they will.
All right, phone lines will be up at 205-342-9904. Also hear the little clip from Hugh Freeze and Marty Smith as well before we end the show. You get your opinion as to how he said it. Was it as bad as it when you read it? Do you think it's quite as bad? I didn't think it was that bad. You listen to Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, it's a pretty beautiful day in the neighborhood, my friends. Other than the normal rush to work delays we have on McFarland Boulevard, you're going to find that in both directions between Watermelon and 69. 69 is a little bit of a heavy load right now on the southbound hookup to Northwood Lakes Drive, as that typically.
And we're done.
Now, where were we?
Cheers to us. When it comes to finishing your supply list, Target has your back to school.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
Inside the locker room. All right, we'll get to Coach Hugh Freeze and Marty Smith did a sit-down interview. Coach Freeze was asked about Nick Saban getting out of coaching, and then Hugh Freeze went on to let you hear that he should have 4 wins against him, and they asked him, what did he do that hurt Coach Saban, Coach team? He answers that as well. Wyatt, let's go ahead and play this from Marty Smith and Hugh Freeze.
How did 4th and 31 impact your life?
Oh, we got to coach better. If you're not accountable through the week and little things, it will show up on 3rd down. It'll show up on 4th down. And so some of that fault is the culture. Some of it is coaching. Maybe we didn't coach it good enough. Not winning that game sucked. It stunk. It was disappointing, hard, but at the same time, I didn't think our roster was as good as theirs, and it gave me even more confidence that Auburn can return to one of the top programs in the country pretty fast, because we went toe-to-toe with them and should have won the game, truthfully. But so it was a mixed bag of this is awful, but man, we can play with them.
Now that Saban is retired, I can ask you this and you can actually answer it. You were one of the people that always gave him hell every time you played against him, whether that was at Ole Miss or Auburn. Why? What do you think you maybe understood that someone else might not have?
Well, at Ole Miss, it was certainly, I think we were one of the first staffs to bring in the tempo RPO world, and he didn't like that at all and tried to get it changed and all of that. And then he started doing it, right. But, and he's a good friend of mine for sure. But I did understand what complicated their calls. I mean, we honestly, Nick is incredible, but I should have 4 wins against them. We beat them twice, and we had them 24-3 the third year, and I wasn't smart enough to slow it down. And then last year easily could have gone our way. So, I mean, I may have not phrased that exactly right. I don't want everybody, but we easily could have beat him a few more times.
All right, here I don't have a problem with, except when he said, I should, well, look, instead of saying we, and I know, if you have time to think about it, I don't know, your thoughts on what he said there. Culture may have cost us on the fourth and 31. We got to coach better. But he kind of bragged on his coaching, saying their roster is a lot better than our roster, and for us to keep it, should have won the game. But then when he says I should be, that's where I have the problem.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I thought it was better than it came. I think I'll agree with you. I thought it was better than what came about when I read it. I think that's fine. I guess he should have said we rather than I. But I think the statements that he made, prior to that, was he told why they, what they tried to do, what they ran, and what, changed the tempo of the game a little bit. They were playing fast, and Coach wasn't really excited about teams coming in and playing them real fast. And it worked. And if it hadn't been good to our listeners, and hadn't been something that he thought was good, that he wouldn't have interviewed him for a job. And Coach interviewed him for a job, and doing all that controversy at Ole Miss, and the commissioner stepped in behind the scenes with the athletic people and advised him not to do that. So if the guy that you like so well in this, as we talk, the head coach at Alabama, Nick Saban, if the guy you like so well tried to hire him, then he was doing things right.
The only problem I have with Hugh Freeze is he's an I guy. Last year they didn't play well. I spent my time recruiting. It's it's never we. When he said I should be, bro, you should. Ain't no I to it. We. Hey.
Like, the touchdown they scored on the pass he called when they played somebody out on the West Coast. I call that play.
Yeah, so, I called that. I called that touchdown. And now he's gonna. I'm more comfortable calling the plays. Now you got to know who. I don't guess you have to let people know, but we know he's going to call the plays this year, and so he's a little bit of a me guy. Too much for me, but I'm saying he should have won 4 games. He's probably right. He should have won that 4th and 31. They were up 23-3, and you get a lead like that, and you got it playing fast. How as a coach, so if he'd have slowed it down and they'd have lost, they'd have said, "Man, you should have kept doing what you were doing. You should you kept the pedal your foot on the pedal." So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer in that.
No, I don't either. I think if it was a fluke victory, then Coach wouldn't have interviewed him. He was doing something that Coach liked. They were playing faster than most people had been playing against Coach, and he wouldn't have interviewed. He didn't interview him for he interviewed him, and Commissioner stepped in and stopped it. And it's amazing to me that happened, and yet he ends up in a position to get where to overcome that, going to Liberty and doing well there, and time let it go by and came back and doing for right now you could say he's doing a good recruiting job.
I may say, of course, when he was at Ole Miss, he cheated to get those receivers that he got, the ones when he came in here. And so, if you're an Alabama fan, you say, if you were doing it honestly, almost wouldn't have had those players as well.
I'm not trying to get in, because I know our listeners will be saying, this, that, and they're probably texting you now on things I said. But, I think if they like Coach Saban, if I don't care whatever happened, he got them and he was playing in a way. He was playing in a way that bothered Alabama. It's just like in basketball, Dean Smith played the four-corner offense that bugged everybody. You know, just certain ways that you play that you think is going to contribute to your success of your team. You try to do that, and they did that, and Coach liked it. And then the problem came up with the cheating, however you want to say it, and he was not allowed to hire.
Yeah. Wyatt, I want to ask you and Dad the same question I asked Kevin. Now, and I'm talking about the Hoover situation. I didn't dig deep enough into it to figure out was there any way to say those guys. But when in our society now, if you lawyer up and the lawyer said those guys should never coach again, it was over for those guys. But I'm looking for somebody, an athletic director, a school board, somebody to say, you know what? Yeah, they made a mistake. We're going to suspend them for 6 games or whatever, but we're going to help these guys. I'm not going to ruin their careers and end it. I'd go talk to the other players. I heard a lot of players come out and say, hey, we had been soft. We needed a tougher culture. Not the way they did it. But what it seems like now when they lawyer up, you're done. Can we ever have anybody, Dad, stand up for a coach and say, we're going to stick with this guy? We hired him for a reason. He made a mistake. We're going to help him and try to make him better in this area. Or we just always got to fire him now, it seems like.
It's not they got to fire him. Lawyering up is big in everything. I mean, I can tell you, it's humongous in everything that happens, because they're convinced to tell their side of it, the side or the person they're representing, and if they're good at it, or they wouldn't be attorneys if they weren't good at it. It makes it for, in the minds of the people who are listening, a closed case, and in all facts, a lot of times that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't know. Wyatt, any opinion on that? Now, if they would have kept those guys, then you're going to get backlash. But sometimes I just wish the administrator would dig in and say, you know what, we are going to get some backlash. But these guys got a history. They've done the right thing most of the time. I'm not going to get them. Now, if they go back to Clay Chalfant and they were doing all that stuff, it just never got public, then that's one thing. But at some point, you look for an administrator to dig in and say, this is my guy. Maybe what they did with Krzyzewski back in the day, they were trying to fire him at Duke. I don't know. Just any comments on that, Wyatt?
No. You can't hump a minor's face in the middle of a practice. You cannot do that.
No, that's true.
If that's the only instance, you may go to him and say, dude, what in the world were you thinking? What were you doing? Why was that your thought process? That is what you should do with this kid. You can't do that. Maybe if he's, hey, I just wasn't thinking, I was being stupid, and then you put guidelines in place to say, well, you know what, we're now going to have a supervised, mandated reporter at practice to make sure that, nothing like that's going on again. If it was a one-off incident, I'm a big proponent of, if they look like they're trying to do better, if they look like they're trying to make up for that mistake, you give them another shot. But like you said, if this has been, if more video comes out of different practices and they're doing this, or
I don't think they ever even considered.
No, they never considered that.
Giving these guys a second chance.
Told them they had to.
And that's what bothers me now. It's always maybe they researched it and that was a pattern. I'm just talking about in all situations. Sometimes you'd like for your people to stand behind and help, like Coach Saban would do with those players. He'd try to help them and not end it. All right, we'll take this last break and wrap up the show. This is Tide 100.9. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Hey, coming up on the Tuesday edition of The Game, Mike Detillier will also feature Tony Sakalas. We're going to recap Alabama defensive players and coaches. That and a lot more starting at 2 p.m. here on The Game on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 Traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We're dealing with construction zones in the area, so that's always a wonderful thing when there are only minimal delays. And so where you are going to have some slow goes, 2059 eastbound between Western Bypass and Tuscaloosa Coaling inside of that construction zone. And, of course, always...
For more information, contact us at 205-333-0231 or visit behwater.biz.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental-car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Deal or text deal to 511-511.
Your order is back with a 90-day guarantee.
All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky mostly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 94. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 72. Tomorrow partly to mostly sunny. The chance of a shower or thunderstorm by late afternoon. The high tomorrow at 93. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Two-time state champion and two-time NIT champion Barry Sanderson breaks down the latest in sports on Inside the Locker Room on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Appreciate Kevin Skarbanski who joined us. We obviously had Coach Houston Nutt. So all the interviews are up on or will be up on the podcast center here. The Gary Harris Show is next. Wyatt, we appreciate your help this morning. Thanks for having that Hugh Freeze and Marty Smith clip there. The practice is going on today, so there'll be more coming out tomorrow. We'll get into that tomorrow. So keep it locked in here all day long. You listen to Tide 100.9 at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports. Have a great day, everybody.